we have a crisis in the world, tremendous crisis, and also crisis in our consciousness, in us. I see the urgency of change, radical revolution, mutation in the mind. I see it. It is necessary. There is complete quietness of the mind, and that which is silent has vast space. Only then that which is nameless comes into being.
This is Urgency of Change, the Krishnamurti podcast. I have anxiety, and I have projected a state of not being anxious. To arrive at that state, I think I need time. But I never ask, can this anxiety be changed immediately? Hello, and welcome to episode 238 of Urgency of Change. Each episode of the Krishnamurti podcast features carefully selected clips from Krishnamurti's talks. The aim is to represent different aspects of Krishnamurti's radical approach to many of the issues and questions we all face in our lives. This week's theme is depression and anxiety. Upcoming themes are choice, matter, and space. This is a podcast from Krishnamurti Foundation Trust, based at Brockwood Park in the UK, which is also home to the Krishnamurti Retreat Centre. Situated in the beautiful countryside of the South Downs National Park, the Krishnamurti Centre offers retreats individually and in groups. The focus is on inquiry in light of Krishnamurti's teachings. Please visit krishnamurticentre.org.uk for more information. You can also find our regular quotes and videos on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook at Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review or rating on your podcast app, which helps our visibility. This week's episode on depression and anxiety has 5 sections. This first extract is from Krishnamurti's first talk in Paris, 1966, and is titled, "We Separate Ourselves from Anxiety."
Our life, as we know it, actually, not theoretically, is a series of conflicts, contradictions, the tension of opposing desires. And we don't seem to be able to get out of this net. Is there a different approach to this whole issue altogether? I think there is. I don't know how you're listening to what is being said. Or you merely listening, hearing a series of words, ideas, concepts, agreeing or disagreeing with them, arguing silently with the speaker, or is one, through the act of listening, becoming aware of the actual state of one's own life as a human being? If you're merely intellectually responding to what is being said, then you merely try to identify yourself with the problem. Therefore, you are different from the problem. I think this should be gone into a little bit. There is this question of anxiety. Let's take that for the moment. Sense of despair, the futility, the boredom of life, the repetitive, mechanical existence. And there is this anxiety. And intellectually, we can see we are anxious. And separate ourselves from that anxiety. The observer then is different from the thing observed. One says, I am anxious. I being different from anxiety. There, the thinker, the observer, is different from that which he observes or thinks about. And so there is a division between the observer, the thinker, and the thought and the thing observed. So one has to find out how one listens as an observer, as a thinker, and therefore something he's thinking about or observing. But if one listens, that is, listens with attention, attention is not intellectual or emotional. Attention isn't directive. You don't say, I will be attentive. Then it's merely an act of will, which again separates. When one attends, there is neither the activity of the fragmentary intellect or the sentimental activity. There is a complete attention, which is neither intellect nor emotion, nor purely physical. Attention is both physical, emotional, intellectual. It's a total activity. There your whole nerves, the cells of your brain, the highly sensitive cells of the brain, all are tremendously awake and attentive. Then in that one can listen. Then there is, in that state of attention, if you are doing it, I hope, as we are talking together, Whatever is false is put aside. It has no value at all. Whatever is true remains and flowers in that attention. And that's what I mean when I said that you are not merely agreeing or disagreeing with the speaker, or trying to interpret what he's talking about. You will find, as you will listen during these 5 talks, he's not giving you any ideas, any formulas, any concepts. But if one is attentive, totally attentive, which is entirely different from being concentrated. Concentrated is self-centered. Attention is not. Then we'll establish a relationship between us, between the speaker and you, the listener. And then we'll examine, partake the thing that we are talking about together. Then you are not the listener. Then we are taking a journey together. Because what we are talking about is the ending of this everlasting conflict. Whether it is thought possible, living in this world, to live entirely without conflict. And to find that out, if it is possible, we must give attention. And there is no attention if you say, I agree, so far I go no further. This pleases me, this doesn't. I am a writer and I want to interpret all this in a certain way. So it becomes extremely worthwhile if we could so listen. Then we establish a communion between us. Then in that communion, there is neither a teacher nor the taught, that which again is too immature. Then there is no follower. No one who says, do this, do that. Through which we all have been, as human beings, for centuries upon centuries. We've had saviors, masters, gods, beliefs, religions, by the dozen. And they have not solved our problems. We're as unhappy as ever, miserable, confused, suffering. And our life then becomes very petty, small, may be awfully clever, talk infinitely about everything cleverly. But inwardly, there is a turmoil, an endless loneliness. A deepening, wider confusion, and a sorrow that seems to have no end at all. So, having more or less stated the problem, with which most of us are quite familiar, is there a different approach? Because the old approach is obviously not the way out.
The second extract is from the first question and answer meeting in Saanen, 1983, and is titled Love, Loneliness, Depression and Anxiety.
I long to be loved, and it is a constant anguish. What am I to do? And most of us in this position, we all want to be loved. Especially by what? Now, let's go into this. I've got what now? It's a very complex question. Why do we want to be loved? And why has it become anguish, an anguish? What is the cause, the root, or the motive wanting to be loved? You understand my question? I want to be loved by you. God forbid, but I want to be loved by you. Why? Is it I'm lonely? Is it that I feel if I'm not loved, I have no raison d'être to live? Is it that if I'm loved, I feel I can flower, grow, be happy and all that, right? Is it that in myself I'm nothing, but when you love me, I become something? You're following all this? Please, this is your life, not my life. So please listen to this. So, there is a cause which makes me say, I want your love. Right? There is a cause. There is a motive. There is a background which says, I must have that. Right? So, we have seen some of the causes. I am desperately lonely. You all know that, don't you? Married, unmarried, whether you're amongst a group, and so on. Human beings, through their self-centered activity, bring about loneliness. Right? Is that one of the causes of the desire to be loved? As long as there is a cause, the effect is to demand that you should love me. Right? So can I understand the cause and be free of the cause? You have understood what I'm saying? Please, sir, this is your life. I am lonely, depressed, isolated, and feel desperately unhappy. And if you love me, I see by you everything is so beautiful. So my demand, my desire, my longing is based on loneliness, demand for companionship with whom I can talk, unfold all the rest of it. So there is a cause, right? Now, do I see the cause? Actually, the cause is I am lonely. I'm taking that one instance. I am lonely. And I want you to love me, for God's sake. And you don't. You turn away from me. Either commit suicide, right? Or I become full of anxiety, right? Depressed, more depressed than ever. I then escape from myself, football, church, new guru, or the latest literature, the latest picture, talk about it, right? So, is the cause of loneliness seen? Loneliness is a sense of isolation, right? The isolation comes into being as long as I'm self-centered, thinking about myself. I'm unhappy, I want you to love me. You follow? I've reduced all my life, which is such an extraordinary thing, to a small affair that you love me. You understand? Such a petty little affair I've reduced it to. And being isolated, I'm unhappy, and I wish you would crave for you to love me. This particular fly is fond of me. You understand? See the tremendous complexity of a very simple question. I want to be loved, and I am not loved, therefore I am full of anxiety. And the question says, what am I to do? When the brain is caught in such anxiety, such anguish, it can't think clearly, can it? Right? It can't even listen. It is so full of its own anxiety, its own sense of desperation. Now, can there be an interval in which you listen? You understand? A short period in which you say, tell me about it. And then, will you listen? Or will you say, no, I don't want to listen because I still love being in a tremendous sense of anxiety. You understand? Most people do. Without that sense of anguish, you are nothing. That sense of anguish keeps you alive. No? No, come on, this is all ordinary psychology. Childish psychology. So will you, if you are in such anguish, for a few minutes, listen to what is being said. Or you love your anguish so much you don't want to listen. So, as we were saying the other day, if you really listen with your heart, with your mind, with all your being, then you have a space. Your brain becomes quiet. Then you listen. Then that very listening is like a seed that's being sown. Then you don't have to do a thing. It then grows and multiplies. And when you understand, love is not something to be asked for. You don't stretch out your hand to be loved. That means you are dependent on somebody. That means you really don't love at all. If you are asking another to be loved, you're asking to be loved by another, that means you have no love in yourself. So obvious. If you have love, you don't ask anybody to be loved, that you be loved. See, we are making ourselves into beggars. That's what's happening. When we go to church, pray, we are beggars. When we want somebody to help us, we are beggars. Or when we depend on books, we are beggars. It may be all right to be a beggar, but see the consequences of it. You're always depending on somebody else. And there are all those people who will help you fill your bowl full of their rubbish. So, see what has taken place when we hear this question. I want to be loved, and I am not. I live in great anguish. What am I to do? That means one has no love in oneself. Then how can another love you? You understand? If you have no love, and you are incapable then of receiving love. You understand? Love is not a vacuum in a sense of emptiness. On the contrary, if you have that tremendous feeling, a quality, a depth, a beauty, then you don't ask anybody for love. It's like a cup being full. Right? If you have listened to this very carefully, then this problem is gone.
The third extract is from Krishnamurti's second talk at Brockwood Park in 1984 and is titled "Everyone in the World Goes Through Depression and Anxiety."
Have you ever held fear? Hold it. Not move away from it. Not try to suppress it, run away from it, or transcend it, or do all kinds of things with it. Just to see the depth of the fear, the extraordinary subtleties of fear. And you can only be aware of all that when one is looking at it without any motive, without trying to do a thing about it, just watching it. One can do the same thing with pain. Of course, not extreme pain. When you watch pain carefully, not trying to rush to the dentist immediately, when you watch it, stay with it. Not morbidly, but see all that is happening, how you react to it, and so on, so on. If you do that, the pain lessens naturally. In the same way, if you hold this jewel, fear is an extraordinary jewel, extraordinary something, which has dominated human beings for 40,000 years and more. And if you can hold it and look at it, then one begins to see the ending of it. Not the gradually, the ending of it completely. Which means fear is part of our self-centered, egotistic activity. Fear is when the ego, the me, is isolated. When the me, the self, this self-centered movement, because it is separative, because it is the very essence of conflict and all the rest of it, that is the root of fear. But when you hear this, how can one live, you will say, in the world without being self-centered? Right? This is a natural, healthy question. But first be free, and then you will find out. Not the other way around. You understand what I mean? It's like saying, what is on this other side of the mountain? You have to climb the mountain to find out. But the description of what is on the other side of the mountain is still a description. But if you walked up the mountain, then you will find out. See, what we want is guarantees. If I give this up, will you assure me of that? And there is no assurance. Actually, there is no giving up. Right? So, we're asking now if thought and time, or thought time, is the fact of fear, and we see it is, and the brain has been conditioned, shaped, molded, has accepted fear as the way of life, and the brain is reluctant to let go. It says, it has lived for thousands of years in the realm of fear. It's got used to it, all the cells, all the, all that's going on inside. It says that's natural, that's form, that's part of our life. And either one learns through tremendous shock, which is bad for the brain, or you see the fact instantly. And therefore, action takes place instantly. And we're talking about security. Obviously, there is no security in the future. Right? I wonder if we see that. Future is when you say I will be safe day after tomorrow, or there is God in whom I'll find security, or in some form of illusions. Is there security in time? Please go into it. Or there is only security, complete security, in the understanding, in the truth of that all time is in the now. The now is the ultimate security. Understand? Come on, sir. Do you understand? The now is that which you are now. What you are is your consciousness. Right? Your consciousness is what you are. Your consciousness is, the consciousness contains your fears, your aspirations, your longings, your desires, your fulfillments, your depressions, your anxieties, sorrow, pain, all the rest of your gods, all that is your consciousness. And in that consciousness is this whole movement of time and thought, right? I wonder if you understand all this. You are your consciousness, aren't you? No? Of course. No? So your consciousness is your faith, your belief, your nationality, your fears, your gods, your British, French, German, Indian, Sikh, and all these divisions which thought has divided the world and human beings. So all that consciousness is you. The selfish activities and trying not to be selfish, and so on, so on. All of that consciousness is you. And this consciousness is the consciousness of the rest of mankind. Because every human being in the world, everyone, from the most primitive, from the most uneducated to the most highly sophisticated, educated. They go through all this. The faith, fear, longings, depression, anxiety, sorrow, pain. Every human being in the world goes through it. Whether he's a communist, socialist, capitalist, or Democrat, or doesn't belong to any group. Right? So this consciousness is shared by all human beings. Right? I'm afraid you won't accept that. Quite right. Because you have been trained, educated, religiously in other ways, that your consciousness is yours and nobody else's. And somebody comes along and says, look at it carefully. What you are, inwardly, you may the outward trimmings may be different, but inwardly, your consciousness is like the man in faraway village, primitive, ugly, uneducated. He's just like you, almost similar to you. And so you are not individual at all. I know all this is very difficult to accept. You are the rest of mankind. You are humanity. And when you separate yourself, then begins all the problems. This separation causes conflict, fear, isolation. And your heaven is filled with isolated spirits. So, is this a fact or not, or just a romantic concept? That every human being suffers, either physically or psychologically, inwardly. Every human being is anxious about something or other. Every human being is frightened. He wants some comfort, hope, God, a father figure, or mother figure, whatever you like. So your consciousness is shared by all of us, by all humanity. Therefore, you are humanity, not some separate British, French, for God's sake. You understand all this? Then one begins to realize the immense responsibility one has. Then one begins to realize the nature of love. Though you may love another, but that love is not restricted to one. Because you are the entire humanity. You are the world, and the world is you.
The fourth extract is from the second talk in Saanen 1980 and is titled, Can Anxiety Be Analysed?
So what is the cause of this misery? Is it the demand for security? Is it this illusion that we are separate? Our brain is totally different from another brain. our minds, our behavior is different from you and another? Or is it thought? There is no Western thought or Eastern thought. Thought is thought. Whether you live in Asia, Far East or Middle East or in the West, it is still thought. Maybe thinking in a particular way or in a particular direction, in a certain pattern, but that is still thought. Whether that thought is employed, exercised in the East or in the West, it's still thought. Perhaps conditioned by the environment in the West or in the East, but it's still thinking. So is that the cause of all this? Because if you have observed historically that man has gone on through this, in this way of living, fighting each other, strife, conflict, unhappiness, anxiety, a sense of constant, abiding fear, and the pursuit of pleasure, suffering, and a flash of love, translated as sex, and the idea of compassion, which is merely an idea, but not something living. So we are going to, together, please, we are walking on the same road together. I am not leading you. I am not telling you. I am not assuming any authority, because though I sit on a platform, and I really mean all this. So we are walking together to find out, not through analysis. We must go into this question of analysis. When there is analysis, there is division. The analyzer and the analyzed. Right? The one assumes he knows and therefore is able to analyze. Observe your own mind, sir. This is happening all the time when we are analyzing. In the process of analysis, time is necessary. I may not be able to analyze clearly today, but I am going to learn, acquire knowledge how to analyze, and that implies day after day, month after month, or week after week, and gradually learn the art of analysis. The analysis implies there is a division of the analyzer and the analyzed, right? So there is constant interpretation between the two, interrelations between the two, one judging the other. You're following all this? One imposing his dictum on the other. All that implies not only time, a constant division between the two. Right? Right? Well, we're going on together, please. And this division has been one of our conditioning. That The analyzer is totally different from the analyzed. But is that so? Is not the analyzer the analyzed? Are we going along together? When I analyze my anxiety, in analyzing that thing called an anxiety, how do I know that it's anxiety? You're following all this? Because I remember the previous experience of anxiety, I have remembered that, it is stored up in my brain, and the next time that a reaction takes place, I recognize it and say, that is anxiety. So there is always this division constantly maintained. But the fact is, if you observe, when you are angry, you are not different from anger. Only later on you say, I have been angry. I wonder if you're following all this. Please, right? Can we go on? Encourage me. Don't encourage me. So, when one realizes, analysis maintains this division constantly. The I, the observer, is different from the observed. Psychologically, I'm talking. Not that I am different from the tree. I am different. But psychologically, this division is the essence of conflict. Essence of trying to be something which you are not, and therefore struggle. That is the pattern in which the brain has lived. Right? And we are saying that process of analysis does not bring about freedom at all. On the contrary, it maintains constant conflict. And the mind, the brain, in constant conflict, must wear itself out. It's never free. It's never flowering, but conflict along the same path. Are we together in this? Do we see this? I'm afraid you won't, because you may be analysts. Maybe your profession. And when you are tied to something, you have already entered the path of corruption. Right? You following all this? Please don't be angry with me or upset. We're just pointing out the facts. Either you can look at the facts and act, or you say, it's too much for me. As an analyst, I depend on my wife, responsibility, my children, my patients, my Cadillacs, my Rolls Royces, my whatever car it is, and carry on. But if you are serious in your inquiry into all this, one must give your mind entirely to it. So analysis prevents clear observation. To observe is much more important than to have an analytical mind. We have lost the power of observation, but we have cultivated the art of analysis. We never observe clearly what is going on in our minds and hearts without any distortion.
The final extract in this episode is from Krishnamurti's fourth talk at Brockwood Park in 1980 and is titled The End of Anxiety.
Why have we banished death from our life? Which means, why have our minds caught in time? You understand? Please, this is not intellectual fireworks. This is inquiring into our complex life. Time is by day, yesterday, today and tomorrow. 24 hours. But also there is time which is inward. Right? Psychological time. Right? We are following this? Why we are asking why human mind is caught in psychological time. Are you following all this? Please, we are talking over together. I'm not talking to myself. We are asking, why has the mind been crippled by yesterday's memories, regrets, attachments? And strangely, attachments are always in the past. I won't go into it now. By yesterday, 1,000 yesterdays, today modified itself and the future, which is time movement. This movement is time, psychologically, right? We are asking, why has the mind why is it caught in that? Which is time, right? That is, hope. You understand? Hope plays an important part in our life. I hope to become. I hope to meet you tomorrow, psychologically. I'll meet you tomorrow, but I've already projected my desire to meet you and create a hope out of that. You understand all that? So we are saying why the mind lives in time. It has evolved in time, right? To have the present mind that we have has evolved through millennia, thousands of years. And that's normal, healthy, obvious. But we're asking why psychologically, inwardly, time has become so important. You understand my question? You're asking yourself, please. Is it because we're always avoiding what is in order to become something else? You understand what I'm saying? Moving from this to that. Psychologically, I am this, but I should not be this but that. Psychologically, I am unhappy, but I must be happy. Right? The must or will or shall be is the movement of time. I wonder if you're following. Please, it's your life. So, the mind is caught in time because it's always moving away from this, from what is. Right? It will change in time. I will be good, give me time, which is like developing a muscle, right? Your muscle may be not sufficiently strong, but if you keep on doing something, strengthen it, it'll become strong. With the same mentality, we say, I am this, I will be that. So give me time. Right? And shall what is be changed through time? You understand my question? It is, I am anxious. I am in great sense. I have great anxiety. Can that anxiety be changed through time? You understand my question? That is, will I become or be in a state where I have no anxiety? See what I have done. I have anxiety. I have projected a state of not being anxious, and to arrive at that state, I must have time. But I never say, can this anxiety I have can be changed immediately. You understand my question? And not allow time. Are you following this? See what happens. I am anxious. I hope to be not anxious. There is a time interval, a lag. In that lag of time, all other activities are going on. Other pressures, negligence. You understand? So, anxiety is never solved. I don't know if you're following all this. I think I will come to a state when I have no anxiety. So I'm struggling. It's like a man who is violent, has invented non-violence. In that time interval, he's violent. So he never reaches non-violence. I wonder if you understand all this. Right? So the question is then, can what is be transformed immediately? Which means never allowing time to interfere. Are you coming together? Listen to this, you will find out it's really simple. If we apply our mind we can solve anything. As has been done, they have been to the moon, built marvelous submarines. Incredible things they've done. Here, psychologically, we are so reluctant, so incapable, or made ourselves incapable. So, if we do not allow time, or never think in terms of time, then the fact is not. Right? I wonder if you see that. Because we allow time, the fact becomes important. If there is no time, it is resolved. Suppose I die this second, there's no problem. You understand what I'm saying? When I allow time, I'm afraid of death. I wonder if you understand all this. But if I live without time, which is an extraordinary thing if you go into it, psychologically, never time means accumulation, right? Time means remembrance. Time means accumulating knowledge about oneself. All that involves time. But when there is no time at all, psychologically, there is nothing. You follow? You are capturing something. Are you understanding something? Please come. So we are saying, rather thinking together, because we have allowed time as a factor to intervene between living and dying, fear arises. Right? So, unless you understand the nature of living, and therefore the nature of dying, which can be found in the living. You understand? Are you meeting me? No. That is, sir. Death is the ending, isn't it? The ending. The ending of my possessions. My wife, my children, my house, my bank account, special bank account. The ending of something. In that ending there's no argument. Right? I don't say to death, oh, please, hold on a minute. Right? So there is no, where there is ending, a beginning. You follow? I wonder if I'll go into it. When the speaker ends attachment completely, you understand? Not to persons, to ideas, the whole process of attachment, with all the consequences of attachment. When there is an ending to it, there's totally different state of mind, right? Isn't there? I have been attached to my furniture, to my... and that attachment has been a burden, and when the ending of that burden, there is freedom, right? So, ending is more important than beginning. Right? You get. So, can I, living, end? End my anxiety, my fears, you follow? End. Not the bank account, but that's too risky. No, I mean that. And we are not going to end the bank account. I'm not talking of that. Ending psychologically. You understand? Ending my uncertainty. When I am confused, to end it. Not say I must find out why I'm confused. What's the cause of confusion? And I must be free from confusion. All that's time. That is negligence. I wonder if you follow this. Whereas diligence is to be aware of the whole movement of time and to end anxiety immediately. Therefore, there is no accumulation psychologically as knowledge. Right? Now, death is ending. Right? Ending of everything. I know what you will say afterwards. What about reincarnation? I know all that. We'll come to it if we have time. I'm not avoiding it. If I say I don't know, I'll say I don't know. I don't play hypocrisy with all this. Death is an ending. And I'm living. Right? We are living. Active. Business, all the rest of it. Can psychologically end everything. You understand what I'm saying? Can you end your attachment instantly, immediately? Your anger, your violence, your greed, your this and that. End. While living. Therefore, you are then living is dying. You understand? Not living and ultimately die. I wonder if you follow that. Living means the dying. Otherwise, you're not alive. And most of us are frightened of dying because we have never been able to live properly. We have never lived. You understand? But we have lived in conflict, in struggle, in pain, in anxiety, in, all the rest of it. So we call that living. Living is not all that. Right? So if that can be, all that can be ended, then there is living. So you are then living and dying. You follow? They go together. Like a flower with perfume. The perfume is not away from the flower. It's there.